John Wayne Gacy was a man who, on the surface, appeared to be the epitome of a good neighbor and a responsible citizen. He was often seen at local events, mingling with families, and always ready to lend a helping hand. John Wayne Gacy was known for his big smile and the colorful clown suit he wore to children's parties.
The clowning was relaxation for me. I enjoyed entertaining kids. Like some people are, they unwind in different ways, either by going out drinking or that. I could put on clown makeup and I was relaxed.
But behind this cheerful facade lurked a monster. Gacy's public persona was a carefully constructed mask that hid his true nature. In the shadows, away from the prying eyes of the community, he was a man driven by sinister urges and a desire for control. His duality was chilling, a stark contrast between the friendly clown and the predator within. Gacy was a predator who preyed on young boys, luring them with promises of work or adventure. He had a knack for identifying vulnerable individuals, often targeting those who were looking for a job or a way to make some extra money. His offers seemed genuine and his victims were unsuspecting, believing they were in safe hands. He imprisoned, tortured, and murdered at least 33 victims, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. The brutality of his crimes was staggering, and the methods he used were horrifying. Gacy's actions were calculated and methodical, designed to inflict maximum pain and suffering on his victims, burying most of them in the crawl space of his suburban Chicago home. The discovery of the bodies was a gruesome revelation, shocking even the most seasoned investigators. The crawl space, a place meant for storage, became a tomb for his victims, a silent witness to the horrors that had unfolded within the walls of his home. The case shocked the nation, exposing the dark underbelly of seemingly ordinary life. News of Gacy's crimes spread like wildfire, dominating headlines and news broadcasts. People across the country were horrified and fascinated by the details of the case, struggling to comprehend how such evil could exist in their midst. How could someone so trusted commit such horrific acts? The community was left reeling, grappling with the realization that the man they had welcomed into their lives was capable of such monstrous deeds. Questions swirled, and the sense of betrayal was palpable. How had they been so deceived? What signs had they missed? The answer lies in the twisted mind of John Wayne Gacy, a man whose psyche was a labyrinth of darkness and depravity. Psychologists and criminologists delved into his background, seeking to understand the factors that had shaped him into a killer. His childhood, marked by abuse and neglect, was scrutinized, as were his relationships and behaviors. A man whose public persona masked a soul consumed by darkness. Gacy's ability to present himself as a model citizen while hiding his true nature was a testament to his cunning and manipulation. His story serves as a grim reminder of the potential for evil that can reside within even the most seemingly ordinary individuals. His story is a chilling reminder that evil can hide in plain sight. The tale of John Wayne Gacy is a stark warning that appearances can be deceiving, and that the true nature of a person can be hidden behind a mask of normalcy. It is a sobering thought, one that continues to haunt the collective consciousness, reminding us to remain vigilant and aware of the shadows that may lurk behind the smiles. John Wayne Gacy's path to becoming a monster began in his childhood. Born in Chicago in 1942, Gacy endured a difficult upbringing. His father was an abusive alcoholic who constantly belittled him. Young John craved his father's approval but never received it. His difficult home life made it hard for Gacy to make friends. He was often bullied and withdrawn. These early experiences left deep scars on his psyche, fostering feelings of inadequacy and rage. As Gacy grew older, he developed a pattern of lying and manipulation to get what he wanted. As an adult, Gacy seemed to achieve a semblance of normalcy. He married, had children, and built a successful contracting business. He was active in his community, even joining the local Jaycees organization where he volunteered at children's hospitals and charity events. Gacy's alter ego, Pogo the Clown, was particularly popular. He loved entertaining at parties and parades, bringing joy to countless children. This public persona, as a friendly, outgoing family man, further solidified the trust he garnered from those around him. However, beneath this carefully constructed facade, Gacy's dark side festered. His marriage crumbled under the weight of his infidelity and increasingly erratic behavior. His urges grew stronger and he began acting on his dark fantasies. John Wayne Gacy targeted young boys, often runaways or those estranged from their families. These were the most vulnerable members of society, young individuals who had already faced significant hardships. They were easy prey for someone like Gacy, who knew how to exploit their desperation and need for acceptance. Sometimes he offered them jobs with his construction company. This was a particularly effective tactic, as many of these young boys were in dire need of employment. The promise of a steady job and income was a powerful lure, one that Gacy used to great effect. Other times, he used his clown persona to gain their trust. His clown persona was disarming, making it easier for him to approach and befriend his victims without raising suspicion. Gacy often preyed on their vulnerabilities, offering them money, drugs, or a place to stay. Many of these boys were homeless or living in unstable conditions, making them particularly susceptible to Gacy's offers. He knew exactly what to say and do to make them feel safe and cared for, at least initially. He would then take them back to his house, where he would overpower and subdue them. Once inside, the facade of kindness and generosity would drop, revealing the true horror of Gacy's intentions. He would use physical force and psychological manipulation to control and dominate his victims. His crimes, fueled by a potent mix of power and rage, escalated in brutality. Each act of violence seemed to embolden him, driving him to commit even more heinous acts. The sheer savagery of his crimes left a lasting impact on all who encountered the aftermath. Gacy's home became his hunting ground, a place where he could indulge his darkest desires without fear of discovery, or so he thought. The house, filled with hidden horrors, stood as a silent witness to his atrocities. It was a place where innocence was lured and destroyed, a grim testament to Gacy's depravity. His reign of terror, built on a foundation of manipulation and deceit, could not last forever. Eventually, the weight of his crimes caught up with him. The relentless efforts of law enforcement and the bravery of those who came forward ensured that Gacy would face justice. His arrest marked the end of a dark chapter, but the scars left behind would never fully heal, unveiling the horror, the beginning of the end. For John Wayne Gacy came with the disappearance of Robert Piest in December 1978. Piest, a 15-year-old boy, vanished after telling his mother he was going to meet Gacy about a potential job. Police, alerted by Piest's family, immediately suspected Gacy. A background check revealed his prior conviction for sexually assaulting a teenage boy. Armed with a search warrant, they descended upon his quiet suburban home. What they found there shocked even the most seasoned investigators. The stench of decay permeated the air. A cursory search revealed a trap door in the crawl space. Beneath it lay a horrifying discovery: the remains of 29 young men. The discovery of the bodies in Gacy's crawlspace sent shockwaves through America. It was a gruesome revelation that shattered the illusion of safety in suburban neighborhoods. The sheer horror of finding so many victims in such a confined space was almost too much to comprehend. Each body unearthed told a tragic story of a life cut short, a family left in mourning, and a community grappling with the unimaginable. The sheer scale of his crimes, coupled with his seemingly normal facade, horrified the nation. Gacy, who had been a respected community member, a successful businessman, and even a part-time clown at children's parties, was now unmasked as a monstrous predator. The contrast between his public persona and his hidden life of depravity was stark and unsettling. People who had once trusted him were now left questioning their own judgment and the nature of evil itself. The media descended upon Des Plaines, Illinois, eager to report on every gruesome detail of the case. News outlets from across the country sent their best reporters to cover the unfolding horror. The small town was suddenly thrust into the national spotlight, with journalists vying for exclusive interviews and first-hand accounts. The public's morbid curiosity was insatiable, and every new piece of information was devoured with a mix of fascination and revulsion. Gacy, initially calm and collected, confessed to the murders. His demeanor was chillingly detached as he recounted the details of his heinous acts. He spoke of his victims as if they were mere objects, devoid of humanity. His lack of remorse was evident, and it became clear that he viewed his actions as justified, even necessary. This cold rationalization only added to the horror of his crimes. He claimed he acted alone, blaming his victims for their own deaths. In his twisted mind, he saw himself as a victim of circumstance, driven to kill by forces beyond his control. He painted a picture of himself as a misunderstood figure, a tragic anti-hero in his own narrative. But the evidence against him was overwhelming, and his attempts to deflect blame only served to highlight his manipulative nature. His chilling confessions, devoid of remorse, painted a picture of a cold and calculating killer. He described his methods with a disturbing level of detail, revealing a meticulous and premeditated approach to his crimes. Each confession was a window into the mind of a man who had embraced his darkest impulses without hesitation. The investigators were left to piece together the full extent of his atrocities, a task that seemed almost insurmountable given the sheer number of victims. As the investigation progressed, 4 more bodies were discovered, bringing the total number of victims to 33. Each new discovery was a grim reminder of the lives lost, and the families forever changed by Gacy's actions. The scale of his killing spree was unprecedented, and the community struggled to come to terms with the magnitude of the tragedy. The search for answers continued, with investigators working tirelessly to identify each victim and provide closure to their loved ones. The full weight of the law now bore down on John Wayne Gacy. The legal proceedings were extensive, with prosecutors presenting a mountain of evidence to ensure that justice was served. Gacy's defense team attempted to argue for his insanity, but the jury saw through their tactics. The trial was a media spectacle, with every moment scrutinized by the public. The verdict was inevitable, and the sentence was clear. Gacy would pay for his crimes with his life. His days of preying on the innocent were finally over. Gacy was sentenced to death, and the families of his victims could finally begin to find some semblance of peace. The community of Des Plaines, and indeed the entire nation, was left to grapple with the aftermath of his reign of terror. The case of John Wayne Gacy remains one of the most chilling reminders of the darkness that can lurk behind a seemingly ordinary facade. His story serves as a cautionary tale, a stark warning of the potential for evil that exists within the human soul.